Welcome, everybody. We're thrilled to have you today for our eSports programs in K-12 schools and universities. This is part of our weekly series related to remote education that we started back in April. My name is Jason Lane. I have the great privilege of being the Dean of the School of Education at the University at Albany. The School of Education has been a long-time leader in the delivery of online education, something we've been doing for 20 years, and we're nationally ranked in the top 10 for our provision of online education. And so when COVID hit, this was an area we thought it was natural for us to move into to support our colleagues, K-12 schools and parents in helping to navigate this process. As part of that, we've created remoteed.org, which is an online resource hub that provides a array of resources. Some of that is, we have over 1,500 curated educational resources available online. We know that parents have had a tough time understanding all the sources that are available to them. So we've gone through and evaluated those and organized them by grade level and subject matter, and would encourage you to follow us on social media as well to learn more about the work that we're doing in remote ED and to support parents and teachers, as well as professional development that's being offered. Today, you are eligible to receive Continuing Teacher and Leader Education Credit, CTLE. It's for being part of this process, and there's an evaluation that would have to go along with that. But if you're interested in obtaining CTLE as part of your requirements in New York State, I encourage you to reach out to Dr. Jerry Rivera-Wilson. Your contact information is there at the very end, and that slide will be back at the end of the program as well. So I'm thrilled, and this is part of our weekly series. Next week, I encourage you to turn in for Joe Feldman. Joe is the author of Grading for Equity, which is a really important issue all the time, but particularly right now as we're grappling with the new modalities of delivery and how do we make sure that we are being equal in the way that we are grading our students. So hopefully you'll turn in next week for that conversation. Today, the conversation is about eSports. This is part of our partnership with the New York State Master Teacher Program. And so I'm thrilled that we have two experts here to talk about the evolution of eSports at the K-12 level and at the college level. And so, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you at this point.
Thank you. So I am Scott Beiter. I teach at Rensselaer City School District, and I have been teaching for about 18 years. And in that time, I have been not with eSports. It's only been in the last 4 years that this thing has really happened. So if you're still getting into it, you are not alone. You are with many that are, this is brand new. And so please contact me. I have information on there if you feel that you need some more information, or you just want to reach out and you need some little a nudge or some help with something. I am very open to helping people out. That's kind of what I do. I also run the Capital Region eSports EDU Discord. So if you want to get on that Discord, please do that. You can connect with other educators as well. And I'll try to get that link out into the chat later. So next slide. So I'm just going to start with a brief introduction on what eSports kind of is, just to have the overview, because I think we have a whole myriad of levels probably here within the chat where you might know something about it, little about it, or nothing. Remember back in the day when you could actually go to arenas and see events? This was an eSport event. I believe this was at the Staples Center, and it was sold out. So it is not something that's going to be going away, and it is extremely popular. Next slide, please. And it's something that we need to keep in mind when we look at youth and the kids. A lot of them are involved in this. So what exactly is it? Well, it's competitive gaming is what it is. So if you're playing an online game against someone else that is, an e-sport, and you can join leagues, compete for prizes. There's, at this point, thousands upon thousands of leagues. There are events that can have lots of concurrent viewers. The most recent, Fortnite championship, or was it some 15-year-old got $6 million winning that had lots of viewers for that. And, stadiums can hold, 40,000 people, but, this is global. So if there's something like, even a StarCraft 2 event, you could have, 40,000 people across the globe watching at the same time, up to millions of people. So next slide, please. So pretty much it's on the rise. Newzoo has some good stats. These are the most recent ones I could find on there. It just kind of gives you an idea of how popular it is and what the economics are for it and the participation globally. I mean, 380 million this year, that's greater than the population of the United States. Because most of the statistics for esports will include, a lot of Asia, which is really big on esports as well. So this is, a global industry, and we see lots of those global things going on where there's markets both here in the States, but also in China and a lot of other countries. So next slide. This is audience growth. And I think this is as you see more, the younger generation get older, you see that grow because there's more and more people, that know of esports and are understanding esports and are into that. So the number of kids that are into this isn't going to go down, but it's going to go up. So it's something that, as educators, but as, adults dealing with the youth and knowing what's out there, we should be aware of it. Just like we're aware of our kids' sports when they play football or baseball or any other school sports and activities, we need to be aware of their interests with this as well. A little side note, I come from a generation where when I was a kid, it was weird, to make a international call. You had to like wait for the line to open up to like, the Germany or something. Now it's like nothing just to hop on and play a game with someone from another country. Students are playing with kids across the globe every day, and it's just what they do. You might think it's kind of, I still think it's amazing. They're just kind of like, it's just what they do. They don't think anything about it. Next slide. So a few more statistics. So not going anywhere. Next slide. So, hopefully I impressed on you, that it's a thing. It's just not a flash in the pan. It's not going away. That involvement of kids is just going to grow and become more of a thing in the future. But why should we incorporate that at school? Well, one, all right, they have it at college now. So at the high school level, even middle school level or elementary now, we want to get them ready for possible scholarships and college recruitment. That's one of the things we do. We also want to provide opportunities for all students when we are trying to get those kids involved in school. We know from research that kids that are involved in school and participate in some kind of extracurricular are more likely to graduate. So we want to get them involved in school activities. And what is a huge activity that kids do that in the past they haven't been able to do at school? Well, let's play video games, right? It's been a huge kind of gap where kids in that affinity group of playing games with their friends were not able to do that in a school setting. Just like other sports, traditional sports, esports can foster things like, teamwork, perseverance, leadership, all those qualities we want to get in other clubs and organizations. We also foster within the esports ecosystem and that development into the STEAM fields. So there has been, some research done to suggest that students that participate in esports and gaming clubs using digital technology will go on and pursue degrees and STEM fields. Next slide. I'm going through this pretty quick, so I know we got a lot more slides to go through. I get questions. We can also connect this to the curriculum. A lot of schools now actually have classes, even at the high school level, about esports and the economics of esports and things like that. So we can connect it to digital citizenship, economics, graphic design, like designing jerseys. You might not think graphic design, but a lot of art goes into video games in production. Communication, the programming, of the games themselves, game design, literacies of different kinds as well. So one of the things, I personally have been focusing on with my kids has been the communication piece and the digital citizenship. So I think it was something I could easily get into and help teach. That's one of the things, when I talk to my school board and administration about the program, what I would want the kids to do is, talk to them about citizenship and how to be not toxic people online, basically. So that's a really good entry level way to get your kids into that education piece of what you can teach them that you wouldn't get from, a traditional sport or club. It's really specific to esports. So getting started, how do we do that? Well, most schools already have some kind of gaming club or computer club, technology club. I took what was the math club and I turned that into a Minecraft club, which then morphed into a gaming club, which then morphed into gaming and esports. So I've always been involved with that. It's just changed over the years. So that's the first thing. A lot of people want to know, where does that money come from for teacher stipends? It is district specific, but a lot of times that it's there. Someone's already got that club going on and it's easy to branch off of that existing club. You have to evaluate student interest. There will be student interest guaranteed, but it's kind of what direction that club's going to look. If you go through and you don't find a lot of kids in a particular game or that are playing on certain systems, then you might want to go one direction versus another, like console versus PC. You got to go through your school board and your administration. First step, if you're a teacher or someone in a district and you want to get that going, talk to the administration, talk to the school principal, hear what they say, because they might have some suggestions for approaching the school board or getting funding. Then you have to go through the process of getting policies and forms, permission slips, things like that you would for any team or club. And that goes a lot with going to the school board and the administration. A lot of times they want to see that ahead of time. You got to see what your technology is at the district. So you got to talk to your IT staff and see what you have available, see what the kids have available. That's why you have that student interest survey as well. And then you got to later on decide on club meetings, practices, and setting up things like your club Discord and way to communicate with your members. It's a process, and it can seem overwhelming, but it's exciting, and you do one step at a time. And I think if you get a lot of other people that are excited as well in your school, it really helps. Next slide. So this is part of the survey that I initially sent out. And I teach in a small school. Rensselaer is not that big. So 55 responses to an emailed survey is pretty good when you're talking about high schoolers in our district. So next slide. I asked them what games they wanted to play. This is the usual, Google form, easy to send out. You can tell this was a few years ago because it was Call of Duty World War II. Rainbow Six is still extremely popular, by the way. Very popular. Next slide. So again, the tech access is the big one when you do this survey, because a lot of schools have just Chromebooks now, especially if you're high school. You can't game really well on a Chromebook. So then it's a matter of, usually you will branch off of existing computer labs, usually one of the technology departments, like your engineering classes will have higher end PCs to run that engineering software. So a lot of times clubs will work with those PCs to play on those. Or what I initially did is having students bring in their consoles, their Xboxes, and playing on those. And you can also just have them play at home as part of a club as well. It's really based on that survey and seeing what students have access to, and you looking in your district and seeing what direction your district would want to go in with those students. Next slide. So these are some current games. I went through this list, and there are a lot of games. I broke them out into two groups. It was the shooters and the non-shooters, because a lot of districts have a hang up with shooter games. And so just to show you, there is a bigger list of non-shooter games than there are shooter games, right? So don't think that, you can't do it because your district won't let you, do Rainbow Six or CSGO. There is a huge, wealth of games that you can do on consoles. Big ones that are getting more popular in districts are like NBA 2K, 2K1, FIFA. Those kinds of sports games are actually becoming more and more popular. I've seen that in the last year, 2 years. And Rocket League, I believe today, is now free. So, one of the things that you have to understand, a lot of these games are not free. Like you would have to, purchase, NBA 2K1, for instance, if you're going to play that. Fortnite's free, of course. But Rocket League was always pay. Now it's free, and it's very popular. So next slide. All right, this is what I've learned so far after having done this for a few years. Using Discord, it was not something I used like 4 years ago. I didn't know what it was. I wasn't on it, but it is like the gamer chat. Every league has their own Discord. Most gaming groups have a Discord. So it's one of those things you're going to have to learn how to use to network and communicate with other clubs and people within the esports industry. Usually when you have a call, you're not using Microsoft Teams or anything, you're going to be using Discord. Right, that's the main form of chat. I'd suggest you start small and adapt. Don't think when you first start out, you're going to have 2 Overwatch teams and you're going to compete, on a huge level. That's not necessary. You can just do intramural versus intermural as well. So don't feel that you have to go all in, the first year. Start small. And you got to try to bridge the digital divide. Like I said, figure out access for students, what technology you have available, because you don't want kids not to be able to participate if they can't get that technology. And it's still a tough piece. It's really, I have no easy answers for that. This is just something you have to work on. You have similar problems with esports that you have in regular sports. I'm also a modified wrestling coach. So, I've done the more traditional sports, and you get a lot of the same issues when, right now, I'm trying to get kids recruited and get them to fill in permission forms and get them to register. I deal with that with regular sports too. Hey, you haven't gotten your health physical done. You haven't gotten this or this. That paperwork bit is still there. The piece where you have kids that don't show up for practice, still there. You have kids that want to quit. Yep, that happens, with all sports. Okay, even with esports. So don't think just because it's esports, it's like, oh, they're going to love it and they're going to be so motivated and they're just going to show up and everything will be hearts and rainbows. Nah, they're, especially at the high school level, you're dealing with high school kids. that have the maturity level of high school kids. It's expected, and you have to roll with it. You have to expect that and work within what you have. Still big discussion at our level. Is it a sport or a club? That really depends on how much, I think, especially in New York State, how much your AD wants to get involved. If your AD really wants to take control and help you and provide you funds and whatever else, and the district is leaning that direction, then by all means. But it can be both at this point. There is a lot of active online communities, and you should find those. And that goes along with the many esports leagues. Even within the Capital District, we have Claim to Fame Entertainment, Gaming Insomniacs, and multiple, at the college level, we have a lot of teams as well. So there's a lot within the capital region, all the, the gaming industry in itself. Those are all resources and things to look into as you kind of build your network and your knowledge base around esports locally. Next slide. These are the high school leagues at the moment. There's NASEF that is out of California. HSCL is probably the biggest one. That's one I'll be having students compete in. The Electronic Gaming Federation, I don't know anyone that's in that. I think they're big in Connecticut. PlayVS is big. That's the one that goes with the national sports organizations and is basically pushed by your BOCES because they have affiliation agreements. But there's also local or regional groups as well. Like I said, like Gaming Insomniacs offers tournaments. I had a Call of Duty team do one of their tournaments. So, and then there's the do-it-yourself stuff. I did a Rocket League tournament with another school downstate, last spring, where we just kind of had kids get together and play Rocket League in a little tiny tournament. So, like I said, you can do really small, you can do really big with some of these leagues. Next slide. Here's a list of terms. I had to learn a lot of these. If you're not a gamer, be prepared for new content overload as you try to follow along. These are the type of things where you have a student talk to you about it and you have no clue what they're talking about. Yeah, so you have to and every game of course has its own terminology. So if I have a Rainbow Six team this year, which I have never played that game. So in order for me to understand anything about what those kids are talking about, I have to go in, play the game, and at least become somewhat familiar with it. These go for pretty much everything. Next slide. Some discussion questions. We can ask these later. I don't think we're doing the discussion now. We'll do it at the end. Yep. So should schools allow FPS games, first-person shooters or shooter games at all? Should esports be a school or a club sport? And how might esports benefit your school and community? So a few things to think about at the end or as we go through the presentation. Next slide. So I have these two links on here. I'll put them up again into the chat in a little bit. So I also put a list of some free games. Rocket League is free now if you want to try that out. And Rocket League is nice because it's available, kind of like Fortnite, it's available on every platform, Xbox, PS4, Nintendo Switch, PC, all of them. So that's a good one to try out. But Rocket League frustrates the heck out of me and it makes me very angry. So I stopped playing it. Next slide. And some articles you can look at, some research about, and some things about esports, particularly at the high school level. The ISTE standards are good to look at by O'Hagan. That's a good one to bring to a board meeting or to administrators to try to get that support to show that you can address some of those ISTE standards with an esports program. Next slide. I think I'm done. Yep, I'm done. So I'll put some stuff in chat as far as some links, and I'll turn it over to Michael.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Scott, and thanks for everything you're doing. I know we've met over the years, and you know, esports is really really a wonderful thing, I feel, for students. You look at the affinity group, and you look at people who identify as gamers, and you look at people in this space, and now to actually, you know, to Scott's point, I think too, when we were playing games back in the day, you know, when I was playing games, it wasn't the mainstream acceptable cool thing to do that it is now. Gamers were sort of, you know, playing in our basements or playing with our friends down the road, but we certainly weren't on TV. We certainly weren't in pop culture. And I think the athletes were sort of the cool crowd, so to speak. It's great to have a space for gamers to be recognized for their interests in this field. So if we can go to the next slide, please. I'd also like to thank Dean Lane and Dr. Glass for the invitation to be a part of this series. I'd also like to make a quick shout out to the School of Education. I'm a very proud graduate of the Graduate Certificate in Online Teaching and Learning, as well as the Master's in Curriculum Development, Instructional Technology. We're all in a virtual space right now. If we're on Zoom right now, but for those of us who have had to go remote, when we're thinking about online teaching and learning, my coursework prepared me for this world that we're in now, even though I had been in online teaching and learning for some time. It also, the idea of games in education, games for learning, immersive spaces, virtual spaces, there's a tremendous number of parallels and overlaps, these adjacent areas, especially with regard to technology. So I absolutely loved the program. And I'm very proud to be a part of it. And also that's really informed my work in esports and in gaming and the work that I do in STEM and in STEAM. I'm a professor of practice in the College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity, working specifically in the informatics program, as well as the director and head coach and one of the co-founders of our esports program at the university. My background is in emerging technologies, entrepreneurship, and the arts. I have a very interdisciplinary background, and I'm happy that I can leverage that background in my work at the university. I also oversee and I'm one of the collaborators on our makerspace and on our drone lab within the college. So technology is very much a part of my world. And yes, I am a gamer. I've been playing games forever, since I was a little kid, and this is very much a part of my identity as well. So I'm happy now that we really have a platform to explore this exciting world. Next slide. This is one of my favorite pictures of our first year. It's probably one of my favorite pictures in my career, and it's really a milestone. We see two students here who didn't know each other at the beginning of the school year and who became the Fortnite champions out of a conference of 70 schools across the United States. They competed in the SUNY tournament that was during the remote period, and they helped us win $5,000 for our student emergency fund that benefits students through our food pantry, through the fund where if they have a financial issue or if they have a living situation, really offers so many levels of support, and that funding shows that, you know, this is more than just gaming, and this is more than just esports. These two students, Jin Long and Aldair, they're in our arena, which is a purpose-built arena or stadium, if you will, for esports, where we compete in our jerseys. We represent the university. It's really a special place. And this is on the night that they won one of our championships. And, you know, we just had such an amazing, amazing, amazing year. And this picture really helps capture some of that magic. Next slide, please. So we originally projected this program of having 30 to 60 students. In the first 2 weeks of our announcement, we had 175 students who filled out a formal application. Going into the spring, we had 350, and I'm working on our fall rosters now with, I think, probably 100, at least four and a quarter, maybe 450 students on that list. A tremendous, tremendous interest from our student body. Next slide, please. So we are a co-ed team of over 100 students, all majors and all class years. This is a university initiative. So while I'm within the College of Emergency Preparedness, Homeland Security, and Cybersecurity, we're one of the collaborators in this initiative that is open to all of our students, the approximately 17,500 students that are here at UAlbany. Right out of the gate, we were one of the biggest teams. We won a bunch of championships. We really developed a reputation in our first year as one of the biggest and highest performing college programs in eSports, which again is a tremendous honor. It really represents the hard work that we've done and also the emphasis on professionalism. Scott mentioned the idea of digital citizenship. We have a code of conduct, community standards, policies that are the vision. You know, we're working with our university resources, and then also working in the digital space and in the esports space to really establish this idea of inclusion, professionalism, diversity, conduct. It's critical to what we do, and we work very hard with our students. So not only are they playing games, but they're also learning about some of those things, maybe directly or indirectly. Next slide, please. Another one of my favorite pictures from the year, I think we skipped over one slide there. Yeah, is our spring meeting. So we had an all-player team meeting where we got approximately 60% of our students together in one of our classrooms. And we did a 1-hour meeting where we set the tone, we discussed the expectations, we discussed the logistics, we got all of our teammates together. Many of the students in our program have never met before. And now we have students who are roommates, they're friends, they hang out together, they're connected. So there's an engagement level of what we're doing above and beyond the actual games. We have students here who are coming back as graduate students. We have students who are interns receiving credit for their work with the organization, and then also student jobs. So there are student paid positions, you know, to assist in the operations of not only the 100 students playing games, but also content creators and social media, students interested in social media or in videography, and really this whole world of esports. So once again, another one of my favorite pictures, you know, the smiling faces and the energy and just the excitement and the opportunity to, you know, be a part of really something special. So on the next slide, we're going to discuss the ECAC, which is the primary athletic conference that we take part in. They've been around since the 1930s, and they have schools across the United States. To put in context the number of games that we played last year, we played over 300 games. Every single night of the week, we had multiple teams playing in our arena. So we played over 300 games against schools across the United States, in many cases in different time zones. Really an amazing scale when you think about that. A traditional sport, and I was a traditional sport athlete as well. I ran track and cross country, and I played volleyball. You may have a season of track meets, and there might be, you know, a dozen, half a dozen meets, some invitationals. If you think about the scale and the logistics of running this sort of an organization, now to Scott's point, I think there's the idea of starting conservatively with starting esports, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. And we started, I think in some ways the opposite. We kind of jumped head first, and there's something to be said for that as well. I think there's different scales and different levels. It was a tremendous amount of work. I can't undersell that aspect of things. So I think there's all sorts of levels. The most important thing is participation. So we did a lot, and it was a lot of work, but we were able to do it, and it was a wonderful experience. Next slide, please. In addition to our work in the games, so to speak, or in the computer space, for me, it's very important as a professor, as an instructor, as an educator, that our students are not playing games 12 hours a day, that they're not neglecting their studies, their work, their personal lives, their family, their religious commitments, any commitments or things in their life. So academics is prioritized. We want to make it cool to work hard in your studies, to work hard on your game, to work hard in everything that you do. And we were also, you know, very excited that out of all of those schools, UAlbany, I believe, had 42 students on the all academic team. So we led all of the schools participating. We're the #1 placement, and that's a student who has above a 3.2. So we won many championships, we won many games, and we also were a leader in the academic sense. And as I said, we want to make it cool to be a gamer and to play games and to have fun and to play at a high level, but also to apply those same things to your study, to level up your studies and to level up your idea of your career and all of these general ideas. It's sort of a culture thing. It's not just about playing games for us. It's really a cultural and a community building opportunity. In the next slide, we have the Empire State Winter Games. We actually attended, we were invited to participate in Lake Placid. Here we are, I believe, the 1984 Olympic Stadium, where the Miracle on Ice was played, the hockey team that won the gold medal. And we got to march in a parade with 10,000 people in the audience. We had matching jackets, and the Olympic torch was there, and we were there for eSports. So this was an overnight trip. And on the next slide, you'll see our students. We traveled up to Lake Placid, and we stayed on the campus of Paul Smith's College. We were there for a couple days. Many of our students had really never been north of Albany, been up to the Adirondacks, and it was wonderful. It was really the trip of a lifetime. And we took the silver medal in Overwatch, and it's just a special opportunity. And I think these are the opportunities we want to build more towards for our students. Many students can maybe have this experience through basketball or football or tennis. But now to think about bringing students up to an in-person event is really fantastic. So this was a special opportunity for us. On the next slide, we see some members of our university leadership. And the most important word I have to emphasize with this, and pun intended, is that esports and developing an esports program is really a team effort. We have here our president, Dr. Javidan Rodriguez, as well as Vice President Mike Christakis, Dr. Christakis from Student Affairs, as well as our provost, Dr. Kim. We also have two of our captains there. So at our ribbon cutting event, we had over 100 students in jerseys. Many of them brought their families. And of course, we were happy to have the media there, and our leadership team really celebrate this exciting opportunity. I jokingly tell the students that they'll come back in 20 years, hopefully to homecoming, and they'll look up at a wall with their families and say, do you recognize who's in that? I say black and white picture, but do you recognize who's in that picture? And they'll be able to show their families that they were part of building this legacy. My hope is that esports at the university and college level will be just as accepted as the NCAA Final Four, March Madness, the big tournaments and all the different sports. And it's really special that these students were a part of the first instance of this program. The next slide, I allude to the fact that collaboration is key, and this has been really a collaboration of all of our offices, our president, student affairs, our provost, our leadership at the dean's level within CEHC, as well as IT, as well as marketing communications, and really across the university. Collaboration and the team effort is very important. On the next slide, I speak about it's a new initiative, and at the moment, the NCAA, this is the question I get often is, does NCAA govern this space? And they don't at the moment. In May 2019, they decided to kind of table the issue, but they are very, very closely looking at it, and there may be a time when the NCAA is in esports, and it's just as big as March Madness or potentially even bigger. But esports is in kind of a hybrid or kind of an interesting space at the college level. On the next slide, we look at our jerseys. All students are issued a jersey, which they wear for all of their games. It's the same equipment that our basketball team and our soccer team wear. And it's the idea of emphasis on professionalism, representing the university. It's the idea of really being on a team. On the next page, on the next slide, we have the other area that we were charged with is developing academic programs around esports. So as Scott mentioned, there are careers. In fact, here in the Capital District, there's a tremendous level of game companies. Some of the biggest games in the world are built right here in the Capital District at some of our game studios. There are many jobs, they're all hiring. These jobs are coding jobs and programming and design and hardware, software, cybersecurity, networking, community management. There are so many careers and opportunities. So we're looking through our academic coursework at preparing students to take that next step as they look to work in technology or in the STEM or in the STEAM fields. And what are the skills that they need? What are the internships that we can help provide them? What are the networking opportunities, professional development opportunities? So we're developing academic coursework in this area, and it's gotten great review from our students, and we're really excited to work with our industry partners on that. A couple more quick slides just to wrap up my portion, and I know we have a Q&A opportunity as well. Community building is very important to us. So we have community gaming nights for students that are maybe not on the competitive end of things. One of the things we started doing last year was we had a community gaming night for our fully online students. This is an opportunity to develop social presence and connection with students who may never set foot on our campus. This took a important turn or increased relevancy during the pandemic when we're all remote. And so students can be isolated. And so we get together once a week through Discord and we play games, and you just show up and you just connect with other people and you play. And so we have 40 to 50 students every single week join us, and it's somewhere for them to be on a Thursday night. It's somewhere for them to meet other people. It's somewhere for them to connect through gaming. So it's not just the win or lose competitive aspect, it's also the community building. On the next page, we see a couple of our students doing some broadcast work on a blue screen, a green screen. This is another opportunity. Many graduations and many events and ceremonies went remote, and they use the same technology that we use to broadcast games. So there is really a tremendous level of overlap with these skills. Next slide, please. We discussed the influence, the importance of academics. And on the next slide, we discuss code of conduct, the important idea that we're all working together to develop a safe place and a community that is a positive community. Gaming can sometimes be a space where there's aggressive behaviors or actions. And as Scott mentioned, it's all about digital citizenship and getting students to understand the importance of their actions and their behaviors, and really have a kind of a wider view. And so this is very, very important to us. On the final slide, or second to last slide, there's the URL, which I'll put in the chat. You can learn a little bit more about what we do. Of course, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and we can chat more. And the actual last slide is really just a graphic of our students. This entire program, from my perspective, is for our students. It's for our university. It's for our community. This is what it's all about. It's about students proud to wear the jersey and to be a part of this opportunity, and a part of this opportunity to hopefully continue to grow. So we've had a wonderful first year, and we're really excited about our upcoming year, and also really excited that esports is, as Scott mentioned, it's a thing. This is an actual space, and I think it's going to only continue to grow. So thank you.
So we'll address any questions or comments. We will take a look at the chat section. Rory, did you see any questions that?
No, it was actually more just, technical things like trying to save links and that sort of thing. Maybe we'll want to jog back to the questions that Scott had at the end of his presentation.
Bear with me.
And also, I had one question that just came in. Maybe I can, in the meantime, jump in. A question about where people can watch our broadcasts. So we are actually going to be broadcasting a lot of our games. And the really cool thing about that is people can watch them. They'll go to our website and there'll be a list and some times and everything. But you can watch them not only on a computer, but you can watch them if you have a smart TV, if you have a tablet, if you have a phone. And some of our big events, actually, they broadcast to the campus center dining halls on campus. And we had students in the dining halls watching, our branded broadcasts with our student commentators. And it was a really cool opportunity there. So Scott, I'm not sure if you guys are broadcasting any games at the high school level, or if you're scaled up to do that. We'll be doing hopefully a little bit more with it this fall, and that's a nice opportunity to cheer on your alma mater, or cheer on your favorites, your fellow students or your families, to see their kids playing. So we're looking forward to that too.
Yeah, I did a little bit broadcasting on our Twitch channel, because we have a district channel, and I'll put that link up there in a little bit. It's got to find that. I haven't used it yet this year. Last year we did Fortnite Friday, and I would broadcast that out. The kids really enjoy being in that space, and it gives them a chance, and me a chance to teach them about that digital citizenship. And when we had some shoutcasters, because we were doing Smash Brothers once a week, where we would broadcast out, and I'd have commentators for that. That was a really good thing to do. And then we couldn't be in school, so that didn't happen anymore. But the kids really enjoy that, and it does give a chance for students that aren't really, they're gamers, but they also want to talk, right? There are those students that really just want to be the commentators, right, and talk about it. So it gives them a chance to excel, since they might not be really good at the game, but they might have a lot of knowledge for the game. So same thing with any traditional sports. You might not be a great baseball player, but you're the sport, and you're passionate about the sport. So for the questions here, one of the main questions I get is about violence in video games. I hear from other teachers across the country, that's one of the first questions that always comes up at the board meeting when you're getting approval, and seeking approval. And so it is very district dependent how you go about it and what program you want to have going. My main thing I talked about with our school board is that a lot of the students that you want to reach that might not be coming to school or not doing any after school activities, those are the ones that are playing Call of Duty, or CSGO or Fortnite. So unless you bring them in to have a conversation and to have them play, then you're not going to have them in. So it's up to the you and the district where you want to go with that. The district might be like, well, we don't care. You're not doing it. And you're like, okay. You have some work to do. I know some districts will have it so you can play a shooter game, but you can't do it in school. They can only play it at home. Okay. That's kind of, compromise. My conversation with my district, and the parents that were there at the board meeting was that, you can't have a conversation about the game and, the violence and the implications of that if they're at home where they're going to play them anyways. So it's just when you have to kind of do the research and kind of be able to speak to these before you go to your administration, your school board. You kind of have to have the answers already and have that knowledge. I also had at that point that, there was a competition where there was like, $2,000 in scholarships for Call of Duty tournament. School boards start to notice, when there's, scholarship money available and things like that. So, so it's really what you're going to be going for your team. You might decide that you are just going to, after you do your survey, that it's all PC and you have a really big group of kids that want to play League of Legends. And you're like, okay, that's what we're going to do. I won't have to worry about, that permission to use, games with guns or anything. That's just what we're going to focus on, which is fine. But like a lot of things, it's, district dependent. But if you're going towards, that the use of guns in games, then you just have to be, be familiar with the arguments for or against, and how you're going to have to go about presenting that to the school board administration. There's got to be some other questions from other people. I can just talk forever about this.
Hey, Michael and Scott, this is Jared Heiner. Thank you very much. This was really insightful. I appreciate it. One of the questions I have, actually, it's kind of a two-parter, but more along the technical side. Did either of you run into, obviously you need to have the computers, but from the infrastructure standpoint, how did you overcome that, especially at the K-12 arena? I would assume SUNY Albany is probably a little bit better prepared. But then the other thing is, the chat, right? You're talking about having Discord chat. How does that work in terms of, the school being able to monitor the conversations back and forth? Can you provide any guidance around those two pieces?
Well, I can jump in on a couple of those. At the university level, our infrastructure, we sat down with IT right away and said, here's what we're looking to do. Here's what we're looking at in terms of specifications for the network. What helped was, once again, the idea of a collaboration and a team. So we had a tremendous amount of support, but many of the people in IT were already gamers. And so they know these games in and out. They know what they need in terms of low latency, low ping, the bandwidth and things of that nature. So on the technical end, things were pretty smooth sailing. You need a pretty beefy computer. And you need the right technical specifications at really kind of to play at the highest level, at the college level. Access and equity is a really important issue that Scott brought up in terms of the financial resources of students. And so we built a purpose-built arena so that all students were not, they all have the opportunity to participate. That's very important to us. And that is a challenge as we go remote. But from a technical perspective, it was pretty smooth sailing. In terms of the chat and the Discord, we have a zero tolerance policy for toxic or inappropriate behavior or language. It's a community thing and a culture thing that to be on this team and to be a part of this opportunity, you have to understand this this concern and this issue. And so, I mean, to be honest, it's a really tight ship, and it has to be in that respect. Gaming can be a space where, especially the anonymous nature of it, there can be some concerns and there can be some issues that come up there. So I think setting the tone and being very direct from the get-go is worked well for us, and then really building around the positive nature and, kind of acknowledging that this is a space that there needs to be some work done, and we want all of our students to be a part of that so that everybody feels welcome and everybody deserves the opportunity to feel welcome in our program. So we're not anonymous. You're tied, your sort of your name, your screen name is tied to your real name. It's not a free for all. We have a code of conduct. It's a pretty strict place in the sense of setting the tone, but then wonderful things can happen as we build a community. So that's the way that I've approached it, but also it is a concern, cyberbullying, harassment, things of that nature, and especially in, Scott's world as well. So those are just two little perspectives from my end. Scott, how do you work with your Discords in that space?
Yeah, so it was one of those weird things where I eventually realized that you almost have to do it in a way. I think it might be easier now to not use Discord since kids are more used to other modes of remote communication now. But honestly, Discord's better than like Google Meet and things for a lot of applications. But I asked my administration, and I make sure the parents are familiar with it. Right, it's that parent communication as well. So. You have those two pieces, and they're not accessing it on a school device, and they're not accessing it with a school account. So it's more of, you have to be 13 to have a Discord. That's the legal stipulation. And when I set it up, it's great because when kids know more about it than I do, right? So they're probably on a multitude of Discords already. And I found that when I give them the agency to be able to be moderators, they will help moderate the chat and everything, for me, and give suggestions for how to run the Discord as far as setting up channels and things like that. So, they can really take ownership of that, and they want it. They want to be able to use it, and especially in the spring when everything went remote, they asked me to make a channel just for school help, and so I'm like, sure. So I ended up, making a channel for school help, so kids could go on there and ask me questions about, school and things like that. So it worked out really well to get to certain students, because there are certain kids they would never respond to an email, but you can get them on Discord almost immediately, or you can get them on Fortnite and talk to them there.
And Discord is actually, oh, I'm sorry, Scott. You raised a really good point though. Discord is actually, like, I don't know, do you use Discord for you're starting to use it for homework help and classes? Discord and Slack and Microsoft Teams, there's a lot of overlap there. And I'm finding it's actually kind of an interesting space to engage with students.
It is, and it's also interesting, like you talk about being a gamer. On Discord, you can block it, but they can see what games you're playing. And you can see, what games they're playing. And that kind of aids in that relationship building, which is important for me and my club members and the students that are on there to be able to, have conversations with them, like, hey, I saw you playing this game the other night. And I think that helps with that, with the program, to kind of see what everyone's doing and have that community hub, because that's really what Discord becomes, is that place where the community meets. And also now talk about the technical side as far as, internet at school. It's better now than it was when I started. Now you can contact your regional information center, and they have a representative there, a person that works just in esports, in getting you set up for esports. So your RIC will actually work with your, IT people to kind of get, your ports the way they're supposed to, or set up a VLAN if you want to do a VLAN, and work, with your IT staff. So that should be a little bit better process. I mean, you in most districts at this point are very familiar with how much bandwidth they have. Right. My district decided to go with the separate VLAN. Which is basically a separate tunnel just for esports. That way you don't have to worry about opening ports and doing all that kinds of weird stuff. But like I said, but each district could have, their IT staff could have a different, take on that. And I think we're very familiar now with what bandwidth your district has, and what's available. I mean, when we're finally back in person again, that'll be more important than right now. Right now it's, your bandwidth at home, that's more important for students. So that is one of those things that your IT staff will have to, get around. So it's a good question.
All right, everyone, I do see that we're out of time. Jerry, did you have any final words?
Other than thanking the presenters today, thank you, Michael and Scott. I think your information was very helpful. I know that there will be many individuals linking back to remoteed.org for a copy of today's community conversation. Thank you for your time and your expertise. And we look forward to seeing you next week on Community Conversations. Until then, health and happiness, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everybody.